Adam Skolnick here. I'm in Cape Town.
I was the only journalist in northern Nigeria.
Not an adventure until you get lost in Tijuana.
If you get caught inside by a giant wave, you feel really alone.
I love the adventure of waking up and not knowing what will happen and that being my job.
Adam Skolnick, so nice to have you back here, my friend.
Great to be here, man.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's good to be seen.
This is a big podcast for both of us.
It's a big day.
I know.
Yeah.
You've, you have been so helpful to me over this past year in the process of publishing my first book, and it was so serendipitous that we were both going through the same process with the same publisher throughout this time. So I feel like you've been both a therapist and confidant and just someone who's been really useful in helping me navigate a completely new territory. So thank you for that.
Hey, you're very welcome. Igualmente,
yes.
muchacho.
Yeah.
No, you've been super helpful to me as well. It's been good to have a brother going through it alongside and just to be able to talk about and prepare for things and brainstorm ways of kind of getting the book out. And I don't know how much of our brainstorms have actually happened for either of us, but it's good to have had that period to discuss and to plot and to plan and at least get this thing moving. So it definitely helped move the energy.
The area that I think I've had the hardest laughs though were when we were both pretty simultaneously recording our audiobooks.
Yes.
And I would call you after a session, and then you would call me after a session, and you were saying like, man, recording fiction audiobook is way different than recording nonfiction.
Bro, I'm still doing pickups. This weekend's my tomorrow I'm going in to do pickups, and Monday, like my audio is going to be a few weeks after the release of the book because we just, the nature of doing it kind of ourselves in our own way. So fiction is so much harder. In my opinion, like, look, I came up through as a writer and an author in nonfiction. And so fiction has proven more challenging on basically every level for me.
Okay.
But I have talked to, novelists who think the same of nonfiction. I don't think it's true. I think they're wrong. I think fiction's harder. But the audio, it's harder because, my goal, you listen to a bunch of audiobooks. I don't know if you have this feeling. And when actors kind of step in and do the narration for some novels, and even for nonfiction, it can sound like over the top to me, like a little bit overacted. Yep. And so my goal was not to do that. And so I hired a woman named Danielle Quisenberry who coaches people on narration. And it became apparent I needed some help. And she came in and I told her that my goal was to have it sound like I'm just reading you a story, which is the goal. And so she said it will, but then over the course of it, she kept pushing me to like voice characters a little bit different and distinctly. And, the main character of this book is a 9-year-old girl. So you can see where that goes. So there were moments where I was like, oh my God, I'm making a fucking ass of myself. But I've been listening to it and it does sound like I'm just reading you a story. And so it's funny how like your brain just, while you're going through it, you're doing everything you want to do that you think you should be doing. It's all happening according to plan, but my head is like screaming, "Stop! Alert! Don't!"
Well, once
abort.
you commit to really sounding like a 9-year-old girl, who's the main character of the book too, you need to commit to doing that voice the entire way through.
Right.
There's no like halfway going 9-year-old girl in the last half of the book. You're like, well, that actually didn't really work. Like you kind of need to pick the pitch
you pick
of every
pitch.
character.
And you're not trying to be a 9-year-old girl. Like a good example, I listen, I'm not going to name the book, but it's a great book. It has done very well. But like the two women who are narrating, every time a guy came on, a character, they kind of sounded the same and they tried to sound like a guy. I'm not trying to sound like a 9-year-old girl. Right. I'm just varying my pitch enough so that you can distinguish who I am. And then after a while, that'll disappear.
Sure.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'm not appropriating 9-year-old girls.
If you want me to call you a 9-year-old girl, I'll do it, man. Yeah, it's an open place. Yeah. Well, so for people who might be wondering, what is it actually like to do the audiobook? It is quite a bit like being inside a padded cell in solitary confinement.
It is.
For 9 hours a day.
Yes.
For a couple of days.
Yes.
And you have an audio engineer on the other side of you, who is reading through a script of your manuscript. And the furthest I made it unbroken was 1 page.
Yeah.
Before stumbling, like you can read a book out loud, but the amount of just small, for me at least, as a non-professional, of little stumbles that I had to go through was surprising. And also I found I had to really tap into more of almost like an athletic mindset.
Yeah.
Like you're in a game with this thing, and if you know, it's like being a pitcher and the last 3 batters have gotten on base.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's like to start stumbling, and then you feel like, oh my God, I'm stumbling more and more.
Yep.
So how do you take a step back?
The momentum.
Okay, I need to take a 15-minute breather right now. Like it was intense for me.
Or there's the ones where you stumble on a sentence and you're like, okay, I got this, and you stumble again, and then it takes like 10 to 12 takes to get through the sentence. Do you have any of those?
Oh yeah, and also just
then you start laughing because you don't want to cry.
Words like that I'd used in the book, like pareidolia was a word that I was like, I don't know that I'm pronouncing this correctly,
right?
And it better be right. But overall, I had a really fun time doing it. I tried to enjoy myself, and you gave me an idea that I wanted to shout out that I think is one of the best I've had in the book, period, which is to pepper certain chapters with audio from the interviews that I did in the book.
Yeah.
So throughout the book, on the audiobook version, there's little 4-minute clips of my mom, my dad, people like Charles Duhigg, people who I brought into the book. And you did that with David Goggins on Can't Hurt Me. And I'm really surprised that more audiobooks don't do that, because I find that it really gives the reader a break from just the single voice.
Right.
So thank you for that.
It becomes more of it becomes the medium it's supposed to be, which is this using audio to tell the story in a more fuller expression versus just an audio facsimile of the novel or the book. And so, I was, as I told you, I was with Ryan Holiday last week, and he mentioned the same thing. He's like, why don't more books do that? And I mean, I don't know the answer, but I know that, David and I did that. I think we were the first to do, to break that mold. And then
for people who don't know, it's you reading the book, which you wrote with David Goggins, and then between each chapter, you're asking him a few questions extemporaneously that then he's answering, and you're kind of talking about the past chapter that you just read, adding more color, stories that maybe didn't make it into the book,
exactly,
things like that.
And just to get his reaction again on his life, looking back on his life, it's almost like you're watching a film and then having little intermissions where he can explain it in more detail that otherwise wouldn't be in there. So it ends up being kind of a mosh up of a book and a podcast. And so that's what I think really made that book a hit, actually. And then Gladwell did it for his more recent books, 2 more recent books, because he's a podcaster more than anything now. And so he's gotten so good at narrative storytelling and audio that he used that. And but other than that, it's not something that's taken off that much as far as I know. But then again, like, I don't listen to all audiobooks, so, it could be that it's more common than I think. But I think it's pretty rare still. So I think what you're going to do is another step in the right direction in that regard. I mean, Can't Hurt Me was just is still being lauded by people. So it's like I think if you can be in that mold, you're in good territory.
Right. And when you're doing something nonfiction, chances are you're recording interviews that you're doing with someone. So a lot of authors, you just have this bank of potential content that can go in the audio zone.
You do. But listen, like I record my interviews as a journalist on little handheld recorders or just over the phone with Otter running or with something running. So it's not really audio quality. You're doing a podcast with most of these people, so
it was
you
a
have good quality audio. So it does matter. Like you don't want to just. It's one thing if you have a few field recordings, but if it's all field recordings and it's not that faint, it becomes more distracting and it defeats the purpose.
Yeah, lowers the whole quality.
Yeah.
What is American Tiger?
American Tiger. It's my new novel. Comes out December 2nd.
I've heard of it. I've read it.
It's based on a true story that I covered for the LA Weekly in 2005. For those who don't know, the LA Weekly, haven't heard of it, it was a cultural touchstone for decades here in Los Angeles. It's kind of it wasn't related to the Village Voice publications, but it was like LA's answer to the Village Voice. And it was the home to some really great writers. Probably the most famous is Jonathan Gold, who
City of Gold.
Yeah, he became the first Pulitzer Prize winning food critic, as far as I know.
Yeah, if people have not seen City of Gold, it's a wonderful documentary about.
He's amazing. I mean, everything that we're doing now, like he is the progenitor of street food as cuisine. He's so the point is, it was for that publication, and the story was there was an escaped tiger in Simi Valley, California, and what happened was a Tiger King type couple moved their menagerie of big cats from Riverside County to Ventura County and set up shop. But when you do that, the laws at that time, you didn't have to alert Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife, as it's known now, that, hey, I just did this, because the Fish and Wildlife holds the permits. And so, usually you'd want to tell them you moved them a different county. But they had a 30-day grace period, didn't tell anybody, and they lost track of 2 cats, a lynx and a tiger. And the lynx was captured quickly, and that's how the game wardens learned about this couple living in their territory. And the couple, when confronted, said, "No, we didn't lose any other cats." But it turned out there was a tiger in Simi Valley for weeks, and it was an El Nino year, so rain was just bucketing down. They brought in federal trackers, some of the best trackers in the country. Couldn't find scent, couldn't find tracks, couldn't find scat. Like everything was getting washed away, and there was this tiger roaming around like the McMansions in the suburbs. And so I went out there to spend time with the game wardens on the search, and then when I filed the story and wrote it, and the case was resolved, I thought, okay, this thing has run its course for me. And then I was trying to think of what to write next. I'd written a novel. The first book-length manuscript I ever came up with that wasn't, a Lonely Planet type thing was a semi-autobiographical novel called Middle of Somewhere, and got me an agent, didn't get me a book deal. And so after that, my agent was saying, well, what do you have next? And I started thinking about what would I want to write next? And this was before I started writing for the New York Times. It was like on the eve of going down to cover that freediving competition for the Times. And so I said, well, there's this story I've been thinking about, and this thing I covered years ago. And I pitched him exactly what I just told you. And he said, that sounds like something. And so right then the seed was really germinated. And then cut to, like, within a few weeks, I'm in the Bahamas covering a freediving competition for the New York Times. A freediver dies, and that becomes my first book, and I become a narrative nonfiction author. Then comes in...
This is One Breath.
That's One Breath.
Right.
And then comes the David Goggins books and all the rest. And so finally, in the pandemic, somewhere between Can't Hurt Me and Never Finished, I had some time, and I thought, maybe now I'll start writing this novel. And so that's what happened. It's basically another pandemic project,
right.
Yet another pandemic project, but it took time. And then, of course, Never Finished happened, and I had to get into that, and so I put it aside and then got back to it.
This is your second book with David Goggins.
That was the second one. And then from 2022, basically since that book came out until now, this has been the focus of my life. And I'm really proud of it. I think it's one of the best things. I mean, I think it's my best work. Is it equal or better than the others? I don't know. That's up for other people to decide. But for me, it's something I'm extremely proud of. It turned out there were a lot of time when I thought it wasn't working and it was just a waste of time. And then you turn a corner and you realize, no, this thing is good. It's got value. And then it just gets better and better. And I have to say, it turned out better than I ever thought it would. It's slightly different in some ways, but definitely better. And I'm just excited to share it with people. It's like, I think it's like one of those stories you can get lost in that can take you out of this crazy ass world that it takes place right now in 2025. Go back 20 years and get into this one little period of time when there might be a tiger roaming around the hills, and see what it's like to meet the game warden in charge of the search, or one of the game wardens in charge, and his daughter, a 9-year-old girl named Belle Turn. They live together alone in a cabin in fictional Simi Valley that I call Alisal Valley. And she's the first person to see the tiger, but nobody believes her because she's got this crazy imagination and she lies and tells stories. And so nobody believes her, not even her dad. And so it becomes unclear, is it or isn't it? Is there something out there or not? And that's kind of the beginning. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on something you said where you are in a process of writing when it's not working.
Yeah.
And this element of, I would call it faith, that if you just keep at it, it will turn a corner, and then suddenly it goes from a thing that feels a bit like shit to the best thing you've ever written.
Right.
And just tell me about the process for you as a writer, learning to trust that and not abandon something too soon, which it sounds like you could have.
Well, I have done that before. You know, I mean, I think it comes from, I have done that. Like anything, like the reason I know not to do it is because I know what it feels like to walk away from something that was promising, because I didn't know if I could do it. And so I think there's two things to it. And this, I think, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on writing, because I know your audience isn't necessarily all writers. So, but I think what is transferable from writing to everything else is when you're doing a new project of any kind, it's not going to be fully realized your first crack at it. It just can't be. That's just not the way it works, right? So it's like in writing, it's something called the shitty first draft. You just have to get through the shitty first draft, and you don't want to judge it, and it doesn't matter how good or bad it is. What matters is getting the lump of clay, because before you get through the first draft, you don't even have a lump of clay. There's nothing to shape. And so you need to get the thing out there, and then you can shape it. And so that like there's something called writing is rewriting. And that's really what it is. So once you have that out there, in terms of like, how do you keep the doubt at bay? That's like our lifelong question for all of us, because the answer changes, because the doubt doesn't go away, right? We all have doubts about our abilities. We all have doubts about how we look. We all have doubts about does this person value me? Does this job I'm in value me? Am I doing everything I can do? Did I fuck up? We all have that. So we're all constantly dealing with some level of it, unless you're just, either incredibly confident, enlightened, or a sociopath. Yeah. you're not really thinking about, the doubt is going to be there somewhere.
Yep.
And so in writing, you have to know that it's a process, and that came with experience for me. Knowing it's a process, it's okay if this sucks. I don't have to judge it right now. It's not ready to be judged right now. And so I'm going to just keep going, get to that first draft, and then I can take it pass by pass. I ended up doing 25 plus drafts of this book.
Wow.
That's how much it took. I didn't let anyone read a word of it. Not even my wife, April, who's as supportive as it can be about my writing. She didn't even look at it until the 10th draft was done.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. You don't want to have your foot on the gas and the brake simultaneously.
Right. You can't. That's a great way to put it. So my long answer, there you go. That's the short answer.
That's
it's
great.
True. It's true.
Copywriter here.
Yeah, exactly.
Novelist, copywriter. You just saw the difference between us.
That's
1,000 words and 3.
My book is 330 pages. Yours is what, 180?
180.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the book, and the part that I would just say the color and the aspect of it that I enjoyed the most was living close to where it took place. You're in Southern California, but feeling like Southern California is a wild place.
Yeah.
I think that is a really unique and iconoclastic take, even to take on what is Southern California, because so often the prevailing narrative is, like SoCal, it's just cement and it's traffic and it's human civilization. But the reality is that it's an incredibly dynamic range of ecosystems. There's the mountains, there's the sea, and we've really become friends, I think, through a shared love of nature.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And most times we're hanging out, we're going to go swimming together, we're going to go hike together, we're going to be talking about the natural outdoors and mountain biking. Yeah. I appreciated how much the physical landscape was a character in American Tiger.
Thank you. And it really was. I appreciate that. I think we are, our reputation is sprawl, right? We're the sprawling, crazy city. You fly in and it just looks this intense concrete, quilt that just stretches on for infinity. And it does feel that way living here at times. But you hit it right on the head. Where this takes place is in a corner, southeast Ventura County, right across the county line from Los Angeles County and Calabasas, and it's basically right over these foothills from Calabasas. So it's part of the same ecosystem you see in Malibu, you see it in Ventura, and it's borders on the Los Padres National Forest, which is this massive national forest that goes all the way through Big Sur. And so really, this particular area and all of Southern California, you said it right, is very biodiverse, and it's got desert ecosystems merging with coastal ecosystems, merging with oak woodland ecosystems. We have mountain lion, we have coyote, we have the big predators, we have amazing bird life, migrating butterflies, migrating birds, and so
not to mention the fish.
And
exactly. You and I go out and diving all the time, and Southern California has some of the best diving in the world.
Migrating gray whales up the coast.
Yeah.
So, we do live in nature, but I think the point of the book is we all do. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the points is that we all live, the wildness is here. Whether we think it's here or not, it is here.
Right.
It's here. It's here in the cracks in the concrete. It's here on our playgrounds. It's here in our own homes, whether we know it or not, and it's inside us, whether we know it or not.
Right.
That wildness is the connection of the web of life. And so we all are part of it. And so that's kind of the theme, or one of the themes of the book. And this particular place where it takes place, it's interesting because right now there's something called the Annenberg Wildlife Crossing that's going in. It's going to be the biggest wildlife crossing in the world. It's a 1-acre bridge that crosses over the 101 freeway, and it'll go in. It's going to be finished. It's already up. It's going to be finished and planted and restored. Everything's going to happen next year sometime. I'm doing a story on it now. And what's happening is there's thousands of acres of open space on one side of the 101, and there's hundreds of acres of open space on the other side of the 101. And so there's plenty of room, or I should say thousands of miles and hundreds of miles, square miles. Sorry.
Yeah, you got it.
And what's separating them is this freeway. And so what that's doing is it's cutting off the genetic biodiversity. And so mountain lions are inbreeding. Even lizards, western fence lizards, are inbreeding. So all of these kinds of the flow of life can't go across that freeway.
Sure.
And so that's endangering the wild animal populations. And so where this takes place really is in this critical habitat that is a linkage. It's like an hourglass linkage of two very important ecosystems. And that's where this book takes place. And so the tiger kind of circling in this area is kind of like, in a way, an indicator species for what other big cats actually experience.
Right.
Yeah.
The hourglass linkage is a perfect visual for the corridor issues, not just in California, but around the whole United States.
Yes.
For people who don't know, that this is really, the freeways have cleaved animal migration in major ways that we did not think about when we were developing freeways across the United States.
Right.
And now you have many conservation groups, both hunting conservation groups like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, to just more basic environmental groups. I mean, it is an issue that I think I like it because it is it's a bipartisan issue.
100%.
There are a lot of Republicans and Democrats that are both understand the importance of migrating animals for healthy ecosystems and the benefit that has to society.
Well, hunters, these wildlife crossings, the first ones were installed in Europe for hunters. And so wildlife crossings it's a great point you make. It's one of the few environmental issues that unites people, that and now the public lands issue that we talked about last time I was here. And so it was that when they were trying to open up all the public lands to development. And so it's great to find those touch points where we can all kind of band together and realize, hey, you know what, we made some mistakes. It's okay to admit that. The reason, and it's also okay to look back at the past and not vilify people for making certain choices or making mistakes, because when it comes to a lot of environmental issues that stem from development, the choices were made because human life was cheaper then and people were dying, and it was hard to, we made certain choices because it was hard to live to 5 years old in the first half of the 20th century, in the late 19th century. It was actually an achievement to get past that 5-year-old marker, and then you could live a life. And so when that is that specter of death for people who are ill or young people or vulnerable people, and that's the deal, you're going to make some public decisions that might not look good when you don't have all the answers, later on. And so what's happened is, we thought imposing ourselves on nature was the right thing because, yes, some people got rich out of it, but really it was because we were afraid that nature was going to kill us.
Right.
And now we're looking back and saying, actually, those were mistakes. Now, there were people out there telling us they were mistakes when they were made, and they weren't listened to. And some of that is these people were marginalized literally their whole lives, whether it's Native Americans or other populations, and other people were just shouted down. And now we're looking back at it, and we're going to stitch those linkages together like we were told to before. But now we're going to do it because we have all the answers and we have a majority support of it. And so I think that's beautiful. And I think when we can look at that and look back at history, it's so easy now to look back at the way we used to think of the world or the language you used to use. And some of it is so jarring and toxic to us now. And we think, oh, let's tear down that statue. Let's do this. Let's do that. Some should be torn down. I'm not saying they're all wrong, but there's also something called humility and looking back and saying, actually, you know what? People made decisions, right or wrong, thinking that they were the right decisions.
Right.
And it turned out not to be.
Yeah. And just the idea that man could have such an impact on nature for so much of human history was just not really, I think, thought about. I mean, even up until, and we're still doing it. I just finished this story for the Surfers Journal on Puerto Escondido, which is this iconic wave down in southern Mexico that has been deteriorating over years due to this jetty that was put in on the northern end of the beach, and it essentially made the beach bigger. So the beach is breaking closer to the wave year after year, which causes more backwash, more closeouts, and it's just now that this was put in 20 years ago that the surfers are like, oh shit, this one structure that we never predicted would have an impact on the wave is, right? And
did it actually help shape a better wave at first? Was it
no, it helped the fishermen get their pongas out. So it was, surf, but they didn't think that it would impact the wave. But yeah, it is this story of man having an impact on nature, and then there's kind of a twist at the end of nature coming in and having a separate impact on the jetty. I won't give it away, but it'll be coming out in a couple months. It's very fun.
That's fun. Right. So that's exactly right. We didn't think we could have that impact in some ways, or we thought it was life or death that we needed to. And some of it's rooted in the way we worshipped, the religion. The bottom line is we wanted to be, whether we thought we were or not, we wanted to be apart from nature because it felt like the safe way of going. And in actuality, we were always a part of nature. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. That's the reason to write this book, is to remind us all, to remind myself, we are a part of nature, and we don't have to know it or even think it, but it's true.
Yeah. It's also a great, when I talk to people who are maybe getting more into reading, or they say oh, I read but only nonfiction books. I wanted to underscore a point of just the benefit of reading fiction, which I think your book does very well, which is, let's say you live in LA and you don't see it as a natural place. You probably don't see it as a natural place because no one is telling you that it is, right? The media landscape is constantly bombarding you with celebrity stories, with traffic stories, and it's quite literally impacting your perception of reality, right? It's like you're not seeing, it's like we don't see ultraviolet rays, but they're there, right? And I think that American Tiger does a very good job of helping you see the ultraviolet rays of the natural landscape around you. And you just are able to notice more. Like I found that after reading this book, I would go on a run and I would just notice a bit more of the plants and animals around me, which I think is a really great benefit of fiction that people don't often see. They just, and fiction is just enjoyable, but it also helps you deepen your perception of the world, which is the ultimate form of human optimization.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I mean, that's a high compliment. I appreciate that. And I also agree. I think, look, to me, all great books are about what it means to be alive. It doesn't matter what the subject is, fiction, nonfiction. They're there for you to wrestle with ideas about what it means to be alive today, how to spend your life. And so, right now the trend is to go towards books that are going to give us specific takeaways. Well, I would say every good book, every great book, good book, whatever, however you want to describe it, the takeaway is a philosophical one. Is what does this mean for me? How am I? And not every book is gonna necessarily have that right on the sleeve for you. And a good novel hopefully doesn't. Hopefully a good novel is just a chance to get into a story. But I think if it's a really good book, it's gonna open you up in ways you didn't anticipate, right. And then you can start to see things differently. And if that's what this book does, it gives you another filter through which to see the world. Then that's a high compliment to me. So I appreciate it.
How did this project in particular change you from the beginning to the end? How do you think the Adam Skolnick identity has shifted, deepened, morphed, if at all, from the process of this 3-year journey? And an example, or a
3 to 13.
3 to 13-year journey, yeah. It's like ultra marathon.
20 years, 20-year journey.
Ultra marathon runners, though, right? Like ultra runners will commonly talk about doing something that's incredibly difficult, like a 50 or 100 mile run, and coming out on the other end of it. Yeah. Goggins' book is kind of about this, right? It's about you do these things that are really hard, and then you change on the other end of it. Yeah. And you can't really predict how. And sometimes it might just be almost ineffable. You can't explain it through words, but is there anything that you've found now being on the other side of it, having the book in your hand, that has shifted you in some way?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I look back at, it's funny, for me, sometimes I'm not the most analytical writer or analytical person. I'm kind of organic. So things, I try to flow with life. And so that comes across in my work too. So I flow stories. I always talk about it as stories come to me. Even if I'm chasing a story, if I catch it, it's because it came to me. And so stories come to me, and then they come through me, and that's the goal, right? And so I'm not one of those people that has the set idea. I want to go write a book that tells people how to have a different relationship with nature. That was never the goal. That wasn't the goal at all, ever. And so that is what came out of it. But it's not what I anticipated, and it was never one of my goals. But that's what flowed. And so looking back at it, I'd say there's a couple of things. From the writing perspective, I got a lot better. And so we talked about the process, and the process was the big shitty first draft, then a couple passes from page 1 all the way through, helped edit, condense some stuff. And then I did character by character drafts, and the landscape was one of the characters. So It's funny that you say that. And so what I did then was just do a pass where I just focused on the landscape.
That's really interesting. Yeah. That's really interesting. So you're just thinking about one character or one, and so basically your editing eye is going through the draft, just thinking, how good can I make this one part of the book? Wow, that's really cool.
I want to do a Belle draft. So only dealt with scenes she's in, nothing else. And so then I did that, and that sped up the the book's progression from being a shitty book to better. You know, that allows you to do it, because climbing up that hill and starting at page 1 every time is so it's very demoralizing.
Yeah.
And so if you can focus on just one character at a time, and then you can also start weaving it together and finding these nice little callbacks you wouldn't have found otherwise.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And for people who aren't writers but maybe want to apply this to their own life, the concept of making smaller circles is this is brought to me by a guy named Josh Waitzkin, who wrote a book called The Art of Learning. And the idea is, if you want to learn a new skill, you break it apart into these little small circles and then just deal with one at a time.
Okay.
Right? If you're trying to learn ballroom dancing, you don't do the whole dance. You learn one small move at a time until it no longer feels overwhelming. And it's actually okay to even forget about the whole dance at certain points and just think about the one move for that week. And then once that improves, it'll raise all of the other subsequent moves up to that standard.
Anyone who's been a beginning guitarist can attest to that kind of thing, right? With the fingering. So that's interesting. So that process has made me better, and then I just got better, you know, like, because writing fiction is a lot harder for me. And so being able to achieve this book has made me better, and 100% made me better. Now I'm sitting down at the computer and I'm flowing at a higher level than I did before. And then the other aspect of it was more personal, and that is, like, you know, I went from thinking this book, my first draft sucked so hard that I didn't know if I was wasting time, and then over the course of many drafts, you know, we had a young child, like Zuma was born in 2020, like after I started this book. I was almost done with the first draft when he was born, and so then over those next years, I'm just sitting in the office and he's growing and April's attending to him and all these things are happening, and I'm so focused on this, and I didn't know how good it was, and it was scaring me, and I was like, am I just like, is this worth my time? And so I had to go through that. And so then getting through that, and you get to the point where you know it's good and you're fighting for it, and then you get to the point where we're about to go out to publishers, and the agency, who at first didn't like it, I sent them the 10th draft and they had a very different opinion than April had. And it was a fight to get them on board, and then to come to the point where they were super optimistic. They were loving it. Like, it was unanimous over there by the time we went out. And then to not have success finding a major deal with the publishers really threw me, because I was not just overconfident, I don't think. I just know. Like, I read a lot of books and I know when something's good. And so I was just surprised. I was surprised, and I would say I was a little bit bitter, because I was just like, what does it take? Because this is after Can't Hurt Me has sold what it sold.
7 million copies?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the specific number that they have out there. But,
which is insane for people who don't know. That's
right.
That's a crazy level of success. So for you to achieve that and then not sell this book to a major publisher. I just was surprised, right. But I shouldn't have been, because the whole time my agent was saying fiction is tough the whole time. And then what really, and so I was, for like months, I was anxious and I was bitter in my workspace. I didn't let it bleed over into my family space. I really did a good job of that, but I wasn't a happy guy, you know, and I like to be stoked on life. I'm like, I seek cruising altitude. I seek stoke. And I wasn't. And so it fucked with me for like months. And it got to the point where by the end of the year, when we still didn't have, and this is the year I think is 2024, we still didn't have a deal. I said, enough. I'm not going to even, I think actually it was 2023. I forget, but it was like, we didn't have a deal. And I'm like, okay, enough. I'm not letting that happen. I'm not letting my life be dictated by anything else. That was end of 2024. And I'm going to deepen my mindfulness practice, and I'm going to let go, and I'm going to detach from outcome, and I'm going to just be in my life again. And so I did that. And so that helped me get rid of all the bitterness. And then when I was doing that, at some point I started to look around, like, how can I get this book out in front of other publishers? We were in the mix with some indies. They don't want to pay you that much. And so I was like, I don't know about that. There's something called the Blacklist fiction competition, where you can put an unpublished manuscript in.
they had some success getting movies off the ground with screenplays that hadn't sold. And so I looked at that. And then when I looked at that, it asked me to categorize the novel, like what genre the novel was in. And I couldn't figure it out. I could not figure out what to call this novel. Like, what is it? Is it literary fiction? Is it is it an adventure story?
Right.
What is it? And so I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't define it. And so that's why we didn't get a deal, because I couldn't define it. And so I don't think that's going to matter to you guys, because like ultimately it's a good book. It's a great story to get lost in, but the publishers couldn't package it. And at that point I knew that they were wrong, but I can't define it. I can't package it in some neat, tidy way.
Right.
But I knew that's what was my problem,
right. And
it wasn't the content. And so at some point, I was talking to Rich Roll's wife, Julie, Julie Pyatt. She had Shrimu Cheese. She's an amazing creator and an amazing human being. And we were just talking about something else. And then I just was telling her, about my travails with publishing and how I was like kind of frustrated with this process and figuring out what to do with American Tiger. And she said something really poignant. She said, Adam, you will become a novelist as soon as you stop waiting for other people to tell you you're a novelist.
Fuck. Julie Pyatt.
Yeah.
Oof. That's a big moment.
And I thought, you know what? She's 100% right. Like, what am I waiting for?
Right.
And so, part of me wanted, because the Can't Hurt Me success and Never Finished success with David came outside the publishing system.
So for people who don't know, just giving people a bit of a 10,000-foot look at this, because also, again, for the non-writers out there, this is very applicable to your life. Let's say that you're a founder. It's a rough equivalent when going through the traditional publishing world to taking on capital from venture capitalists for your business, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you have an idea for Slinkies or something like that, right? You invent Slinkies. You can then go to venture capitalists and say, will you finance this so that I can do all the things? I can get a bigger team. We can distribute it more widely, but then you get a chunk of flesh from Slinky, right? And then the more capital you take on, the less you own the Slinky company. You can also do it a certain way where it's more scrappy. You're paying out of pocket for Slinky, the manufacturing, the distribution, it's all you, but then you get a bigger back end of Slinky if it works out, right? So it's just different ways to do it.
Solid product, Slinky.
Yes.
I like that product.
Solid product. We love the Slinky.
Right. So basically David did his books outside the system because he didn't want other people to own the rights to his book.
Right. And he's thinking, well, I have access to be able to get on these huge podcasts.
Right.
This is the world is changing where people are no longer, the majority of people are not buying it from bookstores where you maybe need a major publisher to get in. They can get it on Amazon. They can get it in this variety of other places. So it becomes a more legitimate choice for legitimate authors. Right. So that's what you ended up doing is going with Scribe,
that's right.
Which I can't recommend enough. Also,
right.
This was my
but even having had that experience, like I was still hooked into the old ways, and I was like, you know what? No, I want to be within the system. I want to be celebrated within the system.
You want a tweed jacket? That's
I wanted the fucking jacket.
You want the fucking tweed jacket?
I wanted the initiation.
Yeah,
but
it's the Happy Gilmore scene where he's like, they all have the gold jackets. Shooter McGavin wants his gold jacket.
Right. Well, And to David's credit, his point was just to get the book out to people. Like he didn't care about any of that, any of the accoutrement. And I guess I was still attached to this, like being anointed. And so then I started looking at it though, and I looked at it and I'm like, wait a second. Jane Austen funded her own publishing of her books with Sense and Sensibility and others.
Wow.
Charles Dickens funded A Christmas Carol. He stood up the cost for A Christmas Carol. He paid the publishers to publish A Christmas Carol. You might have heard of it. You know what I mean? He was Scrooged. He got Scrooged, and so he went his own way. And so then there's so many after that. David is on that continuum, and now you and I are in that continuum.
So the Christmas Scrooge, like Charles Dickens then owns.
He owned it.
He owned that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so if you look at it that way, you start seeing you're part of a continuum. And I didn't know that at the time. And so then I went in, and then what you learn as you go through the process, because even though I went through the process with David, it was really strictly from an editorial perspective. I didn't go through the actual publishing process. None of those decisions were mine, nor should they have been. And so this was my first time going through it all. And I can tell you that there is no such thing as self-publishing. Materially, it's almost the exact same process that you go through the major publishers, except you actually get to make more decisions. You can pick your font. You can design your own cover. And you have to be a very big author at a major publisher to be able to design your own cover or pick your font. It's almost impossible. You get to see the process, from the beginning to end, all the way through. They're more responsive to you, and the people involved in creating the layout and creating the cover and doing the marketing and doing the copy editing, they're remarkably, they are professionals. They're great, and so they've been doing this a long time. And so for me, it was like a better experience, oddly enough, and I did not anticipate that. So this idea of self-publishing, it's like a minimizing of the book. It's the same. It's as good a product as you're going to get from the major publishers. And so I didn't realize that, actually. I knew David's story was about as good as it gets. So I always thought he defied, instead of realizing, no, like this system can help any story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we are entering into a different world where you have more of those choices. And you're now you're working on a new book. I don't know how much you can talk about it. That is coming from within the publishing system.
Yeah, I'm under contract with Doubleday to do another adventure sports narrative nonfiction book. And so it's kind of like, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of in the one breath realm. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's not underwater.
Yeah, you brought up something interesting to me after you read One Last Question Before You Go.
Yes.
Where you said,
I love that book, by the way.
Thank you.
Can I just interject before you ask your question?
Please do.
I love it in the same way you liked American Tiger for the landscape. I love your book for what it isn't supposed to be, which is like this, guide to how to interview your parents. I love it as a memoir, a coming of age memoir, and I love it as one of the great California books. I mean, that's what I think these two books have a lot in common, is they're both great California books, and kind of bringing alive the landscape, the nature, the playgrounds that you've relished in from a young guy all the way to now. It really came alive for me, and I think having read the first version of this, like an early draft for you. And just my encouragement for you was to like give more of yourself to it, like just open yourself up, because I think at the time you didn't want to hurt anybody. You had some things to say and some stories to tell, but you didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, which is such an admirable thing, and we all are there. But I think you haven't hurt people's feelings, and you've been open and you've been honest. And what you've done is you've shared this side of yourself. I didn't know any of this. You know what I mean? I didn't know any of it. I'm sure your listeners are going to feel the same way.
Totally.
And it's
most people don't know most of it.
Right. Your backstory is remarkable. And so to be able to, and your folks are remarkable.
Yeah.
And your love for them because of who they are, but also despite who they are, is so relatable. And so I just think it's great. I think it's a great California book. It's a great coming of age book. It is not just a how-to on how to interview your parents. That's kind of the conceit, and that's great, and that's useful and practical, but it's what's not on that surface to me that really brought me in. I love it.
Fuck yeah. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And I know you're being honest, because the first draft I sent to you, the response was very, very politely and very kindly, but also very honestly, this is not it yet. And I appreciated it because it was, the first draft was glib. It was a copywriter's it was a copywriter's crack at a first draft, right? Which is very beboppy, very like, this is how you do it. Not like, this is what it means to have a parent, and this is my experience growing up with a very wild family in a very unique place, which I think I didn't recognize just how I guess different my upbringing was in Santa Cruz, in this very tight-knit surf community, a lot of drugs around, dealing with like ideas that my parents were bringing into me during childhood that I had to navigate what's true, what's not true, how can I hold love through that, and the natural landscape of it. Like that really, that for me has always felt like a really important part of my voice as a writer. My favorite writers have always been doing stories in the outdoors.
Yeah.
Tim Cahill is a great example of this. He's one of the founding editors of Outside Magazine, and there's a lot of humor through his stories, and it's kind of this guy bumbling along through these great adventures in the outdoors, but that's the shit that made me want to become a writer.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, you can bring people outside and take them into this place. And I'll tell you, man, one thing that's been really surprising to me, having interviewed my parents multiple times, asking them about the stories of their lives, having a lot of other people do it too, having their parents recount the stories of their lives, the amount of things that endure, the stories that endure that are outside is really unique, man. Like the things we remember take place in the outdoors.
There you go.
But yeah,
Agreed.
I had a really fun time writing it. But the point I was going to make is that, we both went through Scribe Media, which is, it's technically self-published, but also, I mean, you can look at it's very professionally done, and it didn't really rock me, I think, in the same way that it rocked you, not going through the traditional publishing world. And you made a point to me after you read the book, which was like, your whole life has been outside of the system. Therefore, it was probably really easy for you. Like I was homeschooled. Like I've had a very winding career path. Like, and I was like, oh, that's very astute and something that I had not even really considered.
And you're more entrepreneurial just generally. Like you did the podcast very early on. You were kind of like that. And I've always been trying to apply my skills to avenues that had distribution already. So I'm like the reluctant. Now I'm an entrepreneur with this book. Like now I'm a new media entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like it or not. I don't want to be. I didn't want to be,
right,
but I am. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to have a platform such as that it is, that I can share this with people who are going to hear it and are going to, feel it. And I think you're right. Like the main characters in my book, Jay and Belle Turn, the father-daughter, their whole bond is nature.
Right.
They trail run every morning. They hike in the Sespe Wilderness. They backpack. They explore the wild places around their suburban home.
Sure.
And so to hear that, like, that's the case for your family too, and all of our family, right? All of our families, basically, those are the moments we take away, is cool, because it was, again, unplanned. But that's what happens when you have these great California books. I mean, Less Than Zero is one of my favorite novels of all time. Bret Easton Ellis. It's such an elegant, and it's a debut novel, and it takes place in Southern California, and it's about like drug use and partying in like the Palisades and Bel Air, like all the elite kind of Hollywoody adjacent and actually Hollywood families. It was a great movie as well, and the Santa Ana winds are in it, and the scrubby hills are in it, and Palm Springs, the desert around there is in it. Nature is in it, and so when you have, I think it's a requirement as a writer, whether it's an adventure, Tim Cahill type book or a John Krakauer type book, or whether it's a novel, you have to make the world come alive. And for me, nothing comes alive like nature. I mean, there's plenty of great urban books too, but I agree with you. Like, to me, I need to have some natural element involved.
Yeah, it's just more enjoyable, man.
Yeah.
I mean, a big shift happened for me when doing One Last Question Before You Go, when I realized that I could have as much fun as possible with it. Like, I didn't need to write this thing that I felt like I was supposed to. Like a How to Interview Your Parents book that I was supposed to write would have been way different than this one.
Right.
And it was not natural for me. In the first draft, it was very much like, well, here's how you do this, and here's how you do this, and it was really through people like yourself, people like Neil Strauss, who was generous enough to read some early drafts, who basically said, like, you can tell your story and much more artfully pepper in all the advice that's needed for people to interview their own parents.
Yes.
But it doesn't need to be this like bullet pointy thing that you could get off ChatGPT.
Right. I mean, ultimately, and the way this stuff is going now, you hear it because I know people pitching these books, and everything is takeaway based now for these publishers, and they're kind of minimizing memoir, which is astonishing for me because, like, what is great about books are stories, and you can't tell me how to interview my parents if you can't tell me what that did for you. Right. And so, like, and you can't do that without telling the whole story.
Right.
And so to me, it's like, we don't know how these books will stand this test of time. We talked about it earlier. I've been kind of, the way I look at releasing a book, I never was, I always loved bookstores until my books started coming into bookstores.
That's
and then
so
they started
funny.
to
I've laughed so
freak me
hard
out.
when you told me this. Yeah. They're no longer a place of quiet comfort.
No, you go in and you're like, wow, people are supposed to find my book in this place?
It's like entrepreneurs going into the grocery store who are like consumer product good entrepreneurs. They're like, it's a war zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It scares the hell out of you.
Yeah. The grocery aisle is a fucking war zone. Why is my Slinky down on the bottom shelf? It's
Exactly
not
right.
in people's eye line.
You know, it's funny you say that. When One Breath came out, it was at the Boulder Bookstore, and I was doing an event there, and I was like, they're like, hey, you should be psyched. You're on the authors. You're like the top list of the Boulder Bookstore employees have you. You're in the top 10. And I was number 10. And it was so low, no one will ever see it. You know,
the bottom. You're in the bottom 10.
Exactly. I would have rather been 15 up here next to the 5.
That's so fucking funny.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gotta say, I still really love bookstores and just generally what they stand for in society. I don't think it's we're up against so much as a culture of readers. People, you know, there's just a lot of distraction on the way to cracking open that book.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, I did not grow up a reader. By the time I was 18, I had read maybe 3 books. And my parents tried to get me to read, and I was just...
Because you were homeschooled.
Well, I did public school until I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
And you know,
so would you just cheat?
In my book,
you cheated on English?
No, I would just
fucking Cliff Notes?
I was just a B- B- student who would kind of read books. I loved stories from a very early age. I loved telling stories. I loved movies. I could watch a movie once and recite practically the whole thing, like scene by scene. I had a very visual memory, like to the point where I would like go into spaces, and I still do, where people like, they call me Kyle Stairman because I'll just like stare into the abyss and I'll go into a story in my head.
Okay.
That was always very natural for me, but the idea that books could be the deepest, most enjoyable form of storytelling to consume did not hit me until way later. You know, and then even early in my career as a quote unquote creator, like it was YouTube videos that I was making. It was always like,
that's when I met you.
Surfing for change, you know, going around, you know, I was watching Vice documentaries.
Yeah.
It was very visual, and I still didn't really get the value of books and of reading. And, you know, I gotta say, man, it was really through my last relationship. I was in a committed relationship through most of my 20s, and that girl was a reader. Mm-hmm. She developed that habit for me. And then, you know, my current relationship with my fiance, Kendall, like she's one of the biggest readers I know. And it was through those relationships that I developed this habit of you just wake up, read for 20 minutes in the morning, bring a book with you wherever you're going, pull out the book instead of your phone in a little moment of boredom.
Yeah.
And
Bring a book to the bar.
Bring a book to the man. I mean,
Bro,
if you want to say,
guys,
hey,
bring a book to the bar, bro.
Here's a hack. Yeah, you're never gonna pull out your phone at a bar and have a girl come up to you and be like, "Wow, what are you scrolling?"
Yeah, bring a book to the bar.
What are you
guys.
scrolling?
And
This is
especially
amazing.
if you're eating dinner at the bar, which is another great travel hack.
But yeah, something shifted for me in my mid-20s where I really fell in love with books. Like I really, on a deep and fundamental soul level, found something there. And now reading and writing is my favorite thing to do.
There you go.
I mean, the amount of weekends that I spent writing One Last Question Before You Go, where I could have been surfing and would look at Surfline and be like, it's not that good today. Yeah, like it was good. I'd be like, I'd rather write right now. This is so fucking fun for me. And it's so, and oh my God, this chapter was really sad, but now I can pepper in this little joke right here. And now I'm out surfing or exercising. And I just thought of like a great turn of phrase that I can bring back into it. Like it became this kind of positive obsession for me of continuing to go through drafts and then continuing to find more interesting qualities about my parents through the drafts and really start to see them differently and appreciate them more. And it was through the hardest chapters to write where I was like, wow, this is fucking scary. Like Thanksgivings might be really awkward for the rest of my life after this.
Maybe.
That means
you're doing some honest work though.
Yeah, totally. And to make it to the other side of that and have my parents support the book. I mean, it's just...
Well, David Sedaris is one of your heroes, and I mean, he doesn't pull any punches, does he? He just tells you like it is with his folks and his family.
And it's so addicting to read his work because you know he's going to just give you his honest take on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, all that is to say, books are magic. I mean, and I think bookstores are magic.
Yeah,
and this is coming from a guy who was not a great student, was not a prodigy writer, was not even a real reader until 20 something.
Yeah.
And now it's defined my personality and my life in such fun and cool ways, and it's allowed me to explore different parts of myself. The humor, I think I'm a lot funnier on paper than I am on stage. Yeah. Actually, because I'm able to think of these little things that is just a total joy. And I whenever I have been able to find something in life where the success and failure feel secondary to the process of doing it, that's when I know I'm on the right track.
I love it, man. That. What it comes down to, basically, what we're all doing. You know that Thai holiday, Loy Krathong?
No idea.
It's that one. You must have seen photos of them, of people kind of like lighting paper lanterns and setting them off into the sky or on the water, and they kind of push them out. Yeah. It's like, what are we really doing here? I mean, honestly, and I'm not just talking about writers. Like, what are we really doing here with our day-to-day actions? Like, what is happening? And maybe we're all just at like this Thai light festival, lighting off little lanterns, and you get to push them out or you set them free, and we'll see how far the light carries. And some of them might go all the way to the moon, and some of them might die like over the back fence. And it doesn't really matter because the process is the same for us, no matter what, which is, hey, let's try to light this lantern then. And just keep that process going to kind of spread some sort of light in this world. I mean, that's how I look at it. Like, because I'm not trying to build an empire. Like, that's not my goal. And if it's your goal, cool. Because maybe you think that empire is your light, which more power to you. I'm not judging it. But like for me, for a guy who's like trying to find cruising altitude and trying to find my way through what I see as a cruel world and challenging, but also beautiful, I like to light these lanterns. And so writing is like that medium for that. I even think freediving is a medium for that. Like you see it on the Instagram. Like, why do I have so many freedivers that I'm following on Instagram? Because I love seeing the videos, man. It just like gives my It gives me pleasure. It gives me like a joy to remember that how beautiful this world is. And for us, you know, I don't dive to 100 meters. What I do is I can write. And so that's what I'm trying to do. But I think we're all doing that to some degree. And then you look back. Now I'm of the age now looking back. What did I do? What were my lanterns really? What were the ones that really made the biggest impact? And I can see them. You know, some were writing projects, but a lot weren't. You know, some is just like I planted a lot of oak trees in my 20s. You know, that's probably one of the greatest things I've done for this world. You know what I mean?
Like literal oak trees.
Yeah, literally.
Okay, I wasn't sure if this is a metaphor.
No,
yeah.
I planted like trees. I mean, I worked for tree people. I cut out asphalt at schools with kids, and we planted trees. And so like that is probably one of the greatest things that I could ever look back on and say, that's what I did. And that's kind of what I'm leaving behind. And so hopefully we all have a couple of things like that.
Yeah, things take time. I mean, that was the lesson that one of the lessons I took away from my first book, you know, and the ways that it changed me is one of the lessons is just that good things do take time. And you can't expect instant gratification from a lantern that is going to go the distance.
Right.
And it's really easy to just stay in a constantly distracted state where you're checking your texts every 15 seconds and your phone's always next to you and you're on Slack and email and just a level of frenetic hum that keeps you out of the space of creativity.
What?
Yeah, what? Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's really just, it's the world is vying for your attention at all times, and you need to say no to a lot of things to say yes to something else. And this project took a lot of me saying no to a lot of cool adventures, you know, surf trips, even jobs. You know, I mean, I was working and still do work as a copywriter and was making my money doing that. But it was a lot of days where I would just, okay, I'm going to spend the first 2 hours of the day writing, and then I'm going to move on to the professional work where I can make my money. But just committing to that process on a daily basis of undistracted time, like things move forward if you just keep doing that. And, you know, you and I went and saw Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, with releasing her new book, and she said, really, like, give your creativity the best of yourself, which I thought was such a cool thing. Like, right first thing in the morning, if whatever that is, if it's sewing, if it's editing for a movie that you're making, whatever, just like commit to serving that thing with the best of yourself, even if it's only for 45 minutes a day.
Yep.
And it makes everything else way easier to do.
Well, I want to speak to one thing. I lost the train of thought before I had something, but you brought it back, which is perfect, which is one thing a lot of writers, and I'm myself included, and I felt like you actually had a little bit of this with that first draft you sent me, and everyone has it with whatever project they're in. We want it to be done. We want it to be done quickly. We want our first crack or second crack at something to be complete.
Yeah.
We think that's because we actually at the time think, hey, this is pretty good. You know, this is good. I think I'm done. And when you're told you're not done, and actually you have to take it apart, it's discouraging and it can throw people off. And so I think the important takeaway here is we want it to be done on our, like right away. We think we want instant gratification. We want it to be done because we want the fruit.
Yeah.
And it's just not usually like that. It can be like that. For some people, it is like that. There are wonderkins that are out there and they take a crack at something and they're celebrated and it just goes and their life takes off. So it can happen like that. For most of you, and my career, my life is a perfect example of that. That is not how it goes.
Yeah.
And I think you found that with this book. You wanted it to be done. You gave it to me. You gave it to Neil. We said, you're not done. But, you know, you got fucking talent and you'll get done, but you got to make it better. And so we challenged you, and you, to your credit, wanted it to be great. Yeah. You know, you didn't want it to be, you didn't want to be done because you wanted to be done. You wanted it to be done and be great. And so that's the other choice you can make. Okay, I can be done. I could say this is done, and just you could have gone to Scribe with that first draft, and they would have published it.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to do that. You wanted it to be great.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and it is.
Fuck yeah, man. I appreciate that. No,
Yeah.
it feels good to be able to stand behind it. And yeah, man. I mean, and the being a wonder kid is really dangerous. Like, if you look at child actors, man.
Yeah, right.
Like, anything that you do and you first time,
You don't even have to look at
right. It's
look
like
at Tiger Woods.
Totally. I mean,
Tiger Woods had a great life, but he had a rough middle.
right. And to really learn to enjoy that shitty period is, and it's why I say it probably way too much, but like the best metaphor I've found for creating is athletics, where like it's not flow most of the time.
Right.
When I'm going on a long run, it's not feeling great most of the time.
No. Running and riding are like that.
There really are.
You're very enthusiastic about it. I've been doing it so long. Like riding for me can be very painful. You know, I'm like most people. Like it can be very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not. It's most of the time like running.
Yes. Yeah. And your fucking feet hurt.
Yeah.
And you're like, this sucks. And I'm slow. And
Yeah.
I'm not like, it's just pushing snow up a fucking hill.
Yeah.
But to take every run, when you go on a run and that 1 mile, those 5 miles, those 20 miles, whatever it is for you, even if you felt like shit the whole time, you're not going to finish that run and think, well, I'm a failure. That was a failure because you did the run, right?
Yeah.
You when you finish a workout, you're like, fuck yeah, stoked I did that. And the same should go for creating. The same, like even if you wrote 10 words in 2 hours, you sat down and you went for the run.
Yeah.
Like you just did it. So good on you for doing it. I mean, which is why, for me, I set a timer and I force myself to believe that it's a success just because I did it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, as an athlete, I think athletes are trained and geared towards taking those wins and like you're not athletes in general, like professional athletes that I've known, they're trained to move forward.
Yeah.
It's all about moving forward and looking back. Is not now a lot of writers I know, we look back.
Right.
We look backwards. And so it's an interesting challenge for me to feel like that congratulate myself, because I just am not like that. But I think it's a good practice to, if like I was talking to Rich Roll about this on the podcast and when I'm on there sometimes, and I think on one podcast it was like speaking kindly to yourself and how why am I spacing on Thich Nhat Hanh is in one of his books he tells people to talk to themselves like, dear one, how are you this morning, dear one? How did you do? And like, to me, it's like nails on a chalkboard calling myself dear one. but then I started to do it just to see. And there's a lot of power in it. Like there's a lot of power to just decide to be like, you know what? Good job, Adam.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's what you're speaking to. And no matter what you're doing, like, don't be afraid to look at yourself and be like, you did a good job. You did a good job today, dear.
Yep.
You did good.
Dear
you did
one.
good, kid. No, you don't have to say dear one. You can say bro. Say bro.
I think you did.
Say bro.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, say bro. It goes down smoother.
Yeah. Thich Nhat Hanh bro version.
Yeah, the bro version of Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah. Good job, bro.
Good job, bro.
Yeah. Totally. I mean,
You meditated today, bro.
Yeah, and it's easy to also it's really easy for me, I'll just speak personally, to like my biggest fear is to come off as arrogant.
Okay.
And like I'm too full of myself.
Okay.
So with that idea, I can really easily be extra hard on myself because I don't even like want to believe that something I've done is really good. But it comes from this, ironically, an egoic place of not wanting to seem egoic, right? And I think that for people that I really respect, like they have a calm confidence about them that I think comes from being friendly toward themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's I think that some people maybe are just born with it, but I think for a lot of us, it takes changing the sentences in our brains. And that is, that's another thing that happened for me as a result of doing this project is it forced me to become nicer to myself.
Yeah.
To want to sit back down in the chair day after day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think for anyone, like my last kind of statement on this is like, I've got my regrets. I've been through a lot of shit. I've had some trauma in my past. But despite all that, I think I have this one superpower that I think is really helpful to me in my life. And that is, I don't wish my life was anybody else's. I don't wish I was not me. I don't wish I was in another place and time. I accept my life as it is, and I've never wished it was different. And so I like, there's times when I just wish the conditions would change and be in my favor, but I never wish this wasn't my life. And I think that might sound simple, and it sounds like, hopefully inherently we all have some of that. But I think, that came really clear to me with like having a kid, and it helps that I was an older dad. But when Zuma was born, never once have I ever mourned how my life, my freedom of my life. Never once. Like, I've always embraced the place I'm in. And I think that is something we can all do, because it's not necessarily natural, because it is natural sometimes for new parents to be like, God, why is my life, especially if you're in your 30s or 20s, you'd be like, wow, I mean, I have to sacrifice this. Where's my freedom? Why can't I do what my friends are doing? All that shit. I got to tell you, that's the toxic shit. It's not what some nasty thing someone says to you. The toxic shit is when you wish for something that you're not living, and you can just choose to decide, no, this is the life I want to live. And maybe that requires you to make some breaks in your life and change. So I'm not saying everything should be golden and you have to embrace all things that are not golden. But what I'm saying is there's a level of ownership of your life that you can take no matter what situation you're in. And you could say, okay, this is my life and I accept it as it is and I will live it accordingly. And so that's what I hope everyone does.
Fucking A, man. I like you. I like you a lot. I love you, Adam Skolnick.
Yeah, I love you too, bro.
You're a really good dude.
Thanks, man.
Incredibly creative and always willing to put your perspective out there in the world, and someone who ships art, which I just
Thank you.
Respect the hell out of you for shipping your art. And whether no matter how many people see the lanterns, we're making the lanterns, we're putting it out there, and we'll keep doing it. I mean, that's the thing. It's really fun to have this be a job with you, and to know that we're gonna just keep following that thing. And it's great to not feel lonely in it,
Yeah, man.
Have a friend like you who I can call and be like, is this bad? And you're like, yeah, that's bad, but this could be better this way. And be like, okay, great. Needed that.
Thanks, man.
So
you're on the early reader list now, my friend.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a really enjoyable read. I recommend everyone get American Tiger. When's it coming out?
December 2nd.
December 2nd. This will be out, I believe, before then, and you can pre-order American Tiger on Amazon right now.
You can.
Pre-orders are super helpful for authors to get, because it really helps make an initial blast on publication day. So I recommend everyone go get American Tiger.
Available right now on ebook and paperback, and then the Audible's coming.
Love it.
Yeah.
Adam, appreciate you, my friend.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.